all been discussing about various aspects of business and where the world is moving. One of the things that is discussed most today, whether you like it or not, is something called as artificial intelligence. You would hear it in various jokes, you would hear it about various complaints, you may talk about people fearing about losing their jobs, kids talking about using ChatGPT to do their homework. Hundreds of things happen, but there is nobody who is not exposed to AI in one form or the other every day in their day-to-day life. So today we have somebody who has been in this particular field for a long, has led various initiatives personally in her capacity as an entrepreneur as well, and also a thought leader who is very vocal about what things really mean and has been somebody who has been guiding multiple students across various locations to help people understand what AI really means and how it can really go and have an impact. It's an absolute privilege for me to have Roli joining us today. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today. We would like to start by understanding what has been your journey so far.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Very excited to be here. Um, so, I mean, the journey has been very long, but mostly I would say in the last 10 years, I have been an entrepreneur. And this is the Babblebots is my second startup. Before that, I spent about 10 years in the US Bay Area. And before that, I did my engineering from IIT Bombay. So after that, moved to the US. I've been across many different industries. Moving across industries has been quite easy for me, and I find that actually a good challenge to come. But I think the journey of entrepreneurship has been the one that has been most challenging, most rewarding in some sense. It's been the highest learning curve. I think efforts that I could put both in terms of what I have learned and hopefully what I can contribute to the world. So I'm very excited to be doing what I do every day.
Awesome. Now, the place where university started is a dream destination for many in this country, right? The IIT Bombay. Would like to understand what was your journey of moving to this prestigious institute? How did you start? How did it happen? Because a lot of people who want to look at it, or parents particularly, really want to understand
Yeah.
how did this journey happen in first place.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really feel like I'll be dating myself because this journey happened so many years ago, almost 30 years ago now, when I moved from my hometown, Kanpur in UP to IIT Bombay. Uh, Honestly, I did think that by this time in my career, I would not be answering such questions in terms of like the journey. I mean, I think when I took that journey, I could have imagined that there was nobody from my family who had ventured so far out to study. And especially as a girl, I think it was even more particularly interesting because I think there was no precedence in my family for anybody to have done that. So I did feel like all those challenges sound a little old right now, and it feels like the world should have moved on. But unfortunately, I think even today, some of these events are relatable, which I'm honestly not very happy about. I would have thought that we would have moved on further along on these journeys. But yeah, I mean, I was always a fairly good student, and I loved math right from the beginning. So maths and physics and science. I don't think I was meant to become anything else except an engineer. So very happy to have undertaken those challenges early on. Dropped a year, got through IIT Bombay in the second attempt. And interestingly, just an anecdote from that time is that your rank really determines what kind of major you get in any of these IITs, right? So, and IIT Kanpur, in Kanpur, there is an IIT. So, of course, you can imagine that the pressure to stay local was very, very high. But I think I was fairly clear actually from middle school itself that I wanted to move out of that city because I felt it was limited in its thinking. And it could have been because of the people I was exposed to around. I had like great family background, but the extended family, we just didn't have a lot of global exposure as a khandan, I would say. And I felt like that was I wanted more than what I was getting there. So I was fairly clear I wanted to move out of Kanpur. So, but the as luck would have it, with my rank, actually, I was getting the exact same branch in both the places, in IIT Bombay and IIT Kanpur. So it was quite emotional actually to tell my parents at that time that I will be choosing IIT Bombay and not IIT Kanpur. And they kind of understood because it's not like it was a surprise to them. But to have gone through that like, middle school decision right through actually doing it. So there's one thing about saying it, and then one is about actually doing it. So that I think, at least my mother was hoping till the last minute that I may have a change of mind. But I was pretty clear that I think I wanted a bigger place to feel like that would be a launch pad. So that is how I landed in IIT Bombay, and I could not have been more lucky.
How did those years change you?
Yeah, I mean, IITs are a great leveler, actually. All of us get into their, we are all, when you're in high school and you're middle school, most people who get through these JEE exams, they are in the local maxima. They're all doing really well in their schools, right? So you have a certain idea about how clever or how smart you are, and then you land into an institute like that, and pretty much everybody around you seems smarter than you are. So I do think it's a great leveler. It really does make you humble about how smart people can be, how driven they can be, how many more obstacles they have crossed to get there. So it's not only about smartness. It's like uh, if I felt my journey was non-typical, then I just had to meet a few more people and ask about their journeys, and you realize that everybody's gone through non-typical journeys. Most people have. People have had come from much less financially secure backgrounds than I did, and I wasn't from a very rich family myself. But like, you that whole economic strata where you come from gets normalized. Your whole idea about how smart you are gets normalized. But I think those things are really good leveler. Most people don't care about your background once you are there. It pretty much is about what you want to do and like how good you are. So but the really important, the upside of being in an institute like that is that your dreams become bigger and you feel like you can achieve a lot more. And I think that is a very difficult to simulate environment in almost any other place, is where you kind of feel that you can be more ambitious, or that ambition doesn't need to be mellowed down. You always have more people who are not only wanting to do more, but are able to do more. So you kind of have these people right around you or a few years ahead of you where you see that they are able to achieve a lot. So I think just being in that sort of, uh, it's a really inspiring environment to be able to find that network or cohort of people who can all feel like, the world is pretty much what you want to make out of it. So your limitations, the mental limitations become they should go away. And I felt like that is primarily what happened to me. I was pretty much sure like I can do whatever I feel like doing. And I think that's a really great confidence booster at that age in our lives.
So after the college, how did your professional journey start?
Uh, so, I mean, after that, so I graduated in the year 2000. So it was a very interesting time. It wasn't necessarily a dot-com boom. At the time, we were kind of on the tail end of that. That was 98. People who had graduated in 98 had very different career trajectories. And interestingly, even now, I see a difference in between people who had graduated a few years early and
Yes.
where we graduated. So this is one thing that has been surprising to me, that actually it matters a lot. That when you are getting out as an adult into the world, what is the world looking like at that time, because it shapes so many things. So that starting point does matter. Of course, after a little bit time, it uh, different people are able to take different amount of leverage of that point, right? So
Yes.
it's not the same.
True.
But I think if you, I don't know if there's a statistical study, I'm sure there's some statistical study that's been done about this, is that a median level performance of a person really depends on what the economy was when you left. uh,
Okay.
and because every batch will have the same normal distribution of skill sets and
Yes.
drive and whatever else you want to put it, right? So let's say each batch is coming out, which is on a very uh, similar curve, right? A normal distribution curve. But then what does that curve is able to achieve over time? It actually changes at a median level depending on when you left the world. So at that time, I was actually quite lucky to get a job that was considered a dream job at that time. And it's still one of my most favorite memories of of graduating from IIT Bombay, I got a job with this company called Schlumberger. Schlumberger was in oilfield services, was considered a dream job. It was kind of like an adventure. So it was like an adventure that makes you work hard, but also pays you really well. You get to travel around the world, and you are there in the middle of oil rigs and something. So for some kind of people who like adventure, and I was one of them, I thought that was a job that was tailor-made for me. So I was happy to have started my career pretty much where I thought that it could be like an adventurous journey, and lot to see, and lot to see, could go around the world, and just see what it was about. So I think that was how the my sort of like, my first job out of IIT was.
So when you're growing and when you're working with such a corporation, this gives you such an exposure, right? You're
Yeah.
working across the world. So why did you then decide to shift from such a corporate part to entrepreneurship? What was the trigger point?
Yeah, I mean, I did stay in different kinds of like largish companies for the first, I would say, first 10, 8, 9 years of my career. So it was not a, but what I had noticed that I was progressively moving to smaller and smaller companies. So Schlumberger had about 80,000 people when I had graduated. The next job I took up in US, that company had about, I believe, like 30,000 or 40,000 people. And then I noticed that it is progressively becoming smaller. The job after that I took had like 10, 12,000 people. It was a bank, but not very big. It was mostly in credit cards. Then the next one was actually a startup that only had about 100 people, 50 when I had joined them. So I did realize that I was getting more and more comfortable with not having a very well-defined structure. And I think I was entrepreneurial even from the days at IIT. I think a lot of the coursework and other things that I had taken was very independent of what we were asked to, or what we were sort of expected to do. So I think there is a little bit of a gene. My last name is Gupta, so I think there's a little bit of that in the blood itself. Is like we do like to be doing things on our own. So definitely that kind of, having those kind of relatives around you growing up, gives you these alternate paths that are possible. So yeah, I for me, I think it was always a question of when do I start that journey rather than if. 'Cause I was fairly clear right from IIT days, I will be on my own sooner or later. So it was only a function of when everything can line up, when I can find something exciting enough to work on, find, people, capital, whatever is needed. I didn't even know what all was needed actually to do these things, because coming from like a trading type of a background, a sort of like, yeah, I mean, I would say trading type of background, you realize you don't actually need a lot of capital. You don't need a lot of like people. Don't need to be necessarily very, very smart to run like, jo hamare baniya wale dhande hote hain, because, you just have to be regular, and you have to be diligent. You have to be good with cash flow and those kind of things, right? But to do things at scale was not something that I had seen. But that is where like the whole IIT background comes in, and you start seeing people who are attempting these things at scale. So yeah, it took me about uh, uh, about 10 years or so so yeah, so I think, yeah, so that's what, like, I think I kept going to smaller and smaller companies till eventually when we moved back to India in 2012 is when I realized that this is if we are going to be living in India, then there is so much opportunity around us that there should be a way to sort of work on things that are 0 to 1. So 0 to 1, and with technology at the center, I think that was something that is what is I've been wanting to do. That is what I have been doing. So generally, I think that is there was a little bit of a predisposition thing. There was also, I would say, I was fortunate enough to have things around me in a way that I could attempt those risks. I know a lot of people want to do it, and it's not always possible. So I don't want to say that all of this is easy or everybody can do it, but it is just that. Yeah, I think I have been lucky enough to sort of have a situation in which I could take a slightly riskier path.
Having a situation or a background or a supporting ecosystem is fine, but when you actually do that, that comes along with the its own challenges, right? And that
Yes.
is something only you need to go through. So how did
Yes.
your first startup happen? How did you change and how did you evolve as an entrepreneur along the journey of that startup?
Yeah. So my first startup is called Urjan Cleantech Private Limited. It was in the solar energy area. And I had been in the solar energy area for 5 years before I ventured into that. So at least in terms of understanding what that market landscape was and all that, I think it was not so difficult because it was AI is a lot more fresh if you think about it, right? Everybody's learning on the go. There was like, 10 years ago, we were not talking in the way that we are talking about AI right now. But solar energy had less of a technology challenge, but uh, it had a lot of commercialization challenges, right? It started to become cheaper, and the government started to support it. Those were the two things that were kind of needed that for that technology to take off. Photovoltaic technology is really old. I mean, Einstein is the one who discovered that photoelectric effect, right? So the in terms of the technology, it was not new, but it was just that if you see, it's called the TRL line, right, where a technology is in terms of commercialization. Uh, After about 4 or 5 years in solar, I realized that uh, there are ways in which you can take this to market with different business models and make it more of a consumer play. And I had come back from US at that time, and in US, distributed solar or residential solar had become, I was starting to become quite interesting. So I felt, okay, we could do something like that in India as well, mostly because India anyway had a fundamental lack of electricity. So this would be a good supplement. I did realize that Indians are much less prosperous on an average than Americans are, right? So it is not something that I felt like is going to be a mass market thing very, very quickly. But it did feel like that even if you have a sliver of Indians who are adopting it, it will still be a fairly large market. And there was a good support from the government. Regulations were starting to come around and the price was going down and all that. So that's how I started. I think some of those, I would say, inevitable contextual things that are generally out of your control were starting to feel like that there would be an inflection point. Now, this is 2014. 2014 is when I started Urjan. And the whole idea was, and in fact, I used to have this vision at that time, which was that clean tech plus fintech plus IoT is equal to million solar roofs. So that was something that was like a rallying cry, that if you can arrange financing, if you can take care of that asset, and if you use good technology to start with, then it's an inevitable thing. Everywhere you will see solar. So that was really what was I was chasing at that time. And we did that. The company's still doing well. I was there for about 4.5 years before I moved on. In going through that journey, I realized a few things. In my equation, there is one thing that is grossly missing. Can you guess what?
The missing component.
Yeah.
Your willingness to hang on to one particular thing for a, or sorry, the better way would be to that what is the next thing. So your ability to look at what next is coming and working on that particular part.
No,
Desire to work on that bit.
no. In that equation, the missing link is government. So
Okay.
even if you have all these three attributes exactly planned, if the policies are not completely super supportive and smooth, you will have a very, very high friction adoption of solar. That was the issue that happened there. So although government has been a strong supporter, but the policies have taken some time for them to get streamlined.
Okay. Fair. Got it. Yes.
Yeah,
They are
yeah.
happening now as we
They're
speak.
happening now. Yes, correct.
Yes. Okay.
So right now, it just feels like it's more of an inflection point that I was hoping would be 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair point. Because
yeah,
now Har Ghar Urja, Har Ghar Solar is something which is happening
correct.
now, along with all
Yeah,
the schemes and rationalizations with all the distribution companies, which is happening now. Ideally,
correct.
it could have happened 10 years back, and we would have had a very different trajectory or a
Trajectory.
lot
Yes,
more independence right now in terms of power requirement.
yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. So of course, I think for many of us who come from a technology viewpoint, we feel like the world is going to move faster than it does. So that has been my big learning there. Is just because you can dream it, you can't always do it, because sometimes the world just takes a longer time to come around to it. If you stick to it, then eventually it gets done. So I'm very happy to say that Urjan is being run by my co-founder, and it's doing really well now. And we stuck to it. The team there, the original team, many of them are still there. It was less of a technology play and ended up being more of an execution play, more of a financing play, which the team is really, really good at. So, so that is a thing, that it could take a little bit longer for the world to come around to what you think where the world should be going. So I don't think dreaming is the problem. I think it's the, if you put a timeline on your dream, that is where it starts to become a little difficult. Where like, not everything is in your control.
True.
So that was one of my learnings there. So timing is very, very critical. Essentially, timing, I mean, the short answer there is that timing is very critical. Um, I think the second thing, what I learned was that sectors that have a need for very strong government sort of support, uh, again, have a little bit, they have a very strong factor that is out of your control. So as an entrepreneur, you have to see what is in your control. And different levels of entrepreneur have different things in their control, right? So the Elon Musks of the world have a different thing in their control. They feel like they can enable a different world because they have more of the world in their control, because of their reputation, because of their skills, because of your connections or whatever it is. So different levels of entrepreneurs have different amount of world in their control. So what I realized is that if you're in a sector where so much of your success depends on somebody who's out of your control, then that is actually it can get frustrating, and you're not quite sure how to operate in that environment, right? That like okay, so for example, more tactically, I'll tell you, there used to be a lot of these conferences that were happening in solar, right? So this is around 2017-18, pre-COVID timeframe. And I used to go to a lot of them. I was speaking at a lot of these events, even internationally. I was going for some keynotes and other things like that. And then I realized that, yeah, like it's been 2-3 years and the conversation is still the same. We all show up at these events and you're talking about the same thing. And I'm like, doesn't feel like progress to me. It feels like we're going in circles because governments have different priorities. Your only priority is that, but they may have other priorities. And this is not only the case in India, it's in the other part of the world also, right? So it's just that. So I think those were two big things in my mind, is that looking back, is that the timing of when the world is willing to adopt. I think that was a very important thing. And second was that how many of the key components are in your control. Uh, and the more you have in control, the more, I think, the farther you can go. I don't think I ever thought any of this is going to be easy. So I was not disillusioned by how long it takes and things like that. I mean, I understand that doing anything from 0 to 1 is a journey that not a lot of people are happy about how difficult it can be. So I don't think those things ever bothered me so much. But things like what could I do in that little ecosystem, or the world that you're envisioning, to get to that world, how much of that is in your control? I think that was a really important thing to sort of have learned for me. Yeah.
So what happened after solar?
Um, well, after solar was a good junction point. So again, my reason to in fact get out of there was not because the company was not doing well. The company was doing fine. But I just realized that there was very limited component of technology there, and it was a very so the components of that equation had they were not even. They were all like yeah. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
realized that with what I can drive with my skill is going to be quite different than maybe what that particular mission needs. Um, and so that was so that was kind of the reason I moved on from Urjan. And then after that, I think most of the entrepreneurs who've spent like 4-5 years just thinking about one problem, they need some time to decompress. So I took 6 months off and pretty much decided not to do anything at that time, take care of health a little bit. And in this whole journey, I've also had 2 kids. So it's not like, it's not like this is the only thing to do. So after that, I was trying to figure out what to do next. And I think one of the things that I realized from the Urjan experience was that the quality of the people that you can bring in your organization is pretty much, it determines what will be the outcome. So it is very, very important to be able to find really good people who can be on your mission together. So, and I think any entrepreneur will tell you, and you may have faced the same as well, is that when you're building a team, uh, it's probably the hardest job that one needs to undertake. And that I started to think that how can we do better? Because a lot of the frustrations that I had with hiring people for Rujan, and then I started to see around and talk to a lot of other people, and I realized almost nobody was happy with the way that they were able to hire for their organization. So the whole thing around hiring had started to become a something that I was hearing very often. Also, I think, yeah. So primarily that's what happened. So at that time, I was speaking to the CEO of Topper at that time, founder Zishan, and he was talking about, like, building pretty much an army of salespeople at Topper for building their distribution. And so I thought that was a very interesting challenge, because I felt like, okay, so I've seen that problem at a certain scale, and this is at 10x that scale. How do we actually 10x? Because it looks like Zishan's problem are probably worse than my problem. So how do we do that? So it became just something that I got really curious about. And I have not been like an HR or recruitment person ever. I'm mostly like a product person and a technologist. I think that's the intersection where I think I bring the core value of skills into this world, is that I very strong customer point of view, and what is the technology layer needed to fulfill those aspirations of the customers. I think that's sort of where we come in as a product. It's a product company. And so it's joined Topper, and was leading their sales hiring and training. And that's when I realized that, like, that how broken the hiring was. I also realized that I realized, as of course how an engineer would look at it. I'm like, there is no engine. So I came from electricity. Electricity, the supercritical turbines work at around 35% efficiency, right? So if you put in 100 units or 100 watts of fuel in them, you get 35 watts of electricity out of it. So that's like a pretty good thing. And those had started to inch up towards, I think, higher 30s or something. And then you hit this Carnot cycle. Like it's because of Carnot cycle, you just hit a certain theoretical maximum that you can go. So you can't be 100 input and 100 output. That is impossible
Yeah.
scientifically, right? To do. And then I'm like, okay, so there is this turbine, it's like whatever, these things are producing at 30%, and here is a recruitment engine. It produces at 1 or 2% efficiency. You talk to 100 people, you like 2 or 3 out of them. I was like, this is insane. It's the least efficient engine I've ever come across. And how come people are living with it and there is no question to try to improve it? So that was a very what I realized is this is a bigger problem. This is a very, very big problem. I think that was to me a very stark realization from my time at Topper, is that my frustrations were multiplied by tens of millions of people across the world, right? And that, to me, the scale of that problem, which is equivalent to the scale of that opportunity, became a very interesting thing to sort of pursue. And then I had some background building products using artificial intelligence like technologies in US, in one of the jobs I had done. So I could see a world where this engine could become at least 10 to 20x more efficient. That was
Agree.
really what I felt, that world is quite possible. And
Yeah.
that is where AI started to come in. That, with artificial intelligence, there has to be a way that you can be 10x more productive when it comes to things like hiring, which have been at 1 or 2% for so long that it just feels like that we have all accepted that as a
Easily.
reality, but it doesn't have to be.
True.
So just this became like my big rallying cry, that how can you connect talent to opportunity really fast with less friction in a more delightful way, where uh, candidates want jobs fast, companies want people fast. There is no reason for these things to be so slow, so onerous, so generally unpleasant. How can technology bring that delight into finding your next gig? And that's sort of really what inspired Babblebots.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
currently you helped us understand the challenge that we're seeing. Now help us also understand how this particular solution is actually facilitating this process.
Yeah. So I mean, So there are many, many ways to skin this, right? But what we are currently doing is that what we are saying is that at the current state, at the state of art of AI models, if you give us 100 candidates and you give us a job description for which you are looking for a person to join you, we are very confident that we'll be able to tell you who the top 5, 7 people are for that. And you don't need any human intervention for that. Everything can be done completely with AI to get you down from a list of 100 to a list of 5. That these are your top 5 people. And that's what we are doing. So we are saying that instead of spending good hours of your day on weeding through these 100 people, why don't you engage with these 5 people or 6, 7, or whatever, some really small single digit number of who are the most suitable candidates. So now so what happens is, if you see in the current world, most of the recruiter time goes in very unproductive tasks, right?
Agree.
Doing the phone calls, you're scheduling interviews, you are doing like some quick survey of something. Half the times you're not taking notes. You are unable to talk to every candidate because you are working a certain hours, but candidates are not available on those hours, right? And it's a very natural phenomena. I don't think either recruiter is wrong or the candidate is wrong. It's just that, right? So I felt this is very, very suboptimal. I mean, in general, all these tasks that are being done and the way they are being done are very suboptimal. And what is the optimization function we are going for, right? We are going for that, are we able to connect a great talent to an opportunity? That is what it is, right? If you talk to any people leader in the whole world, there's nobody who will say, I'm not looking for great talent. Like Jeff Bezos says, right? Don't ask what is going to change tomorrow. Ask what's not going to change tomorrow. Because then you can build with a long-term vision. So like Amazon picked up this idea that no matter what happens to the world, getting your stuff fast and getting it cheap is something human beings are going to focus on till the end of humanity,
Agree.
right? It's just like a core human desire to get things fast and to get them cheap, right?
Yeah.
That really drives the motivation. So the whole Amazon was built in a way that this is not going to change, and that is how they started, and they spawned so many businesses after that. And this particular business is not even the profitable one, but it gives them uh, enough insights to be able to have spawned like really, really, like, profit making AWS type of businesses, right? So that was the key insight. Now, if you transpose this for something like the talent landscape, right? Recruitment landscape, there's going to be no leader in the world who says that I'm looking for subpar talent.
No way.
Because why would you? You come into the work in the morning, you want to work with the best people that you can find, right?
Agree.
People don't like if their people who are reporting to them are not smart. The reporting people don't like people. Everybody wants to work with really smart, driven
Yeah.
people, right? So again, the DNA of a person who is desired by these organizations has a somewhat of a predictable. Uh, uh, I mean, at least you know who you don't want.
Agree.
That is the point. See, so what happens is with AI, you can figure out a lot of people who are unfit. So then you
True.
focus on the ones who are the most likely fit. So
Agree.
your mental shift has now gone from spending your good energy on going through the wrong fit to just focusing on the ones that are really good fit. And then again, it's not an easy puzzle, right? So this is not an easy puzzle because there's no right answer, right? So
Agree.
unlike like cancer screening, so like if you say AI is used a lot in cancer screening also, right? And if you're familiar with AI, there's this thing called a confusion matrix where you sort of determine what's true positive, true negative, right? You kind of see where you are in that 2 by 2. Now, if you have something like cancer screening, whether a person has cancer or not is a true or false thing. The only job of the technology is to figure out if they are able to find it at a high enough accuracy of that occurrence. as much as a human, because we are also limited by what humans can find, right? So let's say as compared to humans, am I able to detect 99% of these things? Or if the humans were making a mistake, then am I able to do better with that AI, right? So,
Yeah.
but there is kind of a right answer there of whether you have that condition or not. With hiring, there is no such great true answer, right? There could be five people who have exactly same set of skills, Charu, but you may like to work with one of them, but not like to work with the other ones, right? Because the
Agree.
chemistry match, the vibe match, there's some other things that, like, you may not relate to as well. So what we do with Babblebots is we say that you should focus on the great candidates and spend your time in converting those people, because great candidates also have great options.
Agree.
Your energy should go in trying to get that talent into your organizations
Yes.
rather than worrying about a lot of other people who were not particularly a good fit to begin with. They may be good fit for other roles, but not for the one that you had. So that really is I would say that has been a day one mission at Babblebots. We are still pursuing it with a lot of enthusiasm. A lot of the AI that is available state of the art now has made pursuing this mission a little bit easier, but it's also become much more noisy. People can cheat more. There's just a lot of noise in the market, right? So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. You also always have to be staying ahead of the curve. But I think if you go back to the Amazon example of, is this something a leader of an organization, a people leader of an organization, or a CEO of an organization will like? Yeah, any CEO in the world, forget the people leaders, any CEO in the world, if you tell them that I'll give you the top 3, top 4 candidates for every role, would you love it? There is no way to say no to that. So that is really what we are. It's a huge mission. It's a global problem. AI helps a lot in making this mission sort of accomplishable. So that's what we're doing at Babblebots.
I have a little tricky question here. Okay, sorry to be upfront on this particular part, but one thing I've realized is that the more is the recruitment moving towards technology and more is the use, what is happening is that there's a parallel crop of people who are advising these potential candidates to fill in there with resume with the words what are called as the keywords or things that
Correct.
enable the
Yeah.
search, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whether the particular candidate has done something or not, or
Yeah.
he has done something around this part,
Yeah.
so this resume fabrication has also become a big business.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. I don't think you need to go to any advisor. You can just ask ChatGPT to like stuff your resume with stuff, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's a cat and mouse thing. So
True.
now at this point of time, if you are only using resume to shortlist candidates, it's a useless phenomenon. So that is why what we do at Babblebots is that we have like these AI agents that go much further along. We do skill-based assessments. We do psychometric assessments. We will actually do coding challenge with you if you are a little bit more qualified and along the funnel, right? So there are many ways you have to get into skill-based assessment. You have to figure out that this person is just not saying stuff, they can actually do stuff. So that testing of somebody's ability to do stuff has to come up very early in the evaluation process now, which earlier could be left for much later, right? But it is impossible to get a good signal right now from just the resume because it can be just like, it can be fabricated in so many ways. Yeah.
Agree. So that's the primary differentiator. So compared to just a screening, it's not just a screening platform. It is basically a primary, a complete engagement platform wherein you identify somebody,
Correct.
validate what they are doing about,
Yeah.
engage with them on how they are doing,
Yeah.
and only when this particular individual clears all these particular levels,
Yes.
that is the shortlisted profile which is offered for the final
Yeah,
interaction.
that's correct. That's correct. But we also do let our customers have access to all the other candidates that we have engaged with. Because what you don't want is you don't want anybody to feel like they were unduly rated. So if the recruiter thinks that there was some other great profile that didn't come up, they still have the ability to go and look at everybody else who had sort of shown an interest in the role. But we do say that, okay, based on what you thought your job was and based on how you defined the assessment should be. So this is all dependent on what the customer wants to do. We are not very prescriptive, because what we say is that we are technologists, right? We bring AI, we are bringing the products, we're bringing the capabilities into the world. But that insight that the recruiters have, that the hiring managers have, because they've been working with these people for years, that is not something that resides with us, right? So let's say you're running this podcast and you say, I'm looking for a digital marketing person because I need XYZ reasons, right? And this is, let's say, uh, now you will have to tell us how you want to assess this person, right? Maybe you want them great on Instagram but not so good on LinkedIn. Maybe you want them good on both of the things. Maybe you saying that, hey, all this is great, but really I just want to build my YouTube channel because the LTV of working on the YouTube is actually better than all these short term things. Whatever your goal is, and you would be right with your goal. We are no one to question that why would you have this choice, right? But you so with the exact same title, you can have a lot different way in which you're assessing someone as a social media manager or a podcast or community manager or someone, right? So we take that whole so live we provide this sort of a capability for you to structure this evaluation, the candidate engagement in whatever way you see fit, and then we go through it automatically, and then you get the best at the end of it.
So one point based on this conversation, I would also like to bring out is that this particular platform is an enabler, right? It's a
Yes.
value creator for the individuals who are already engaged in the process. This is the intent is not to replace with somebody who are doing. The intent is basically to get you more qualified profiles so that you are able to create better value for the organizations compared to doing the routine task.
Yes, that is
Amazing.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. And
Amazing.
in fact, what we have seen a lot now, the product has been in the market for more than 2 years. So we've learned a lot along the way in terms of how it is being used, where it is we're finding most value. I don't believe a single recruiter has lost job because of Babblebot so far. And in fact, we've had whole teams of like 10, 15 recruiters who are completely AI first right now. And if you remember, I had given the example of one of the companies there, Charu, that during that session,
Yes.
they have used us for like a real estate company. They've used us for like 90 roles. So these AI agents have become their first line of talking to the candidate, no matter what the role is. And then what their people are doing is that they are just working with the hiring manager, things inside that organization to help fill these positions fast, because nobody wins by filling this position slow, right?
True.
So that is what the acceleration comes from, getting to that endpoint really really quickly with lot less cycles. You don't actually lose talent because the talent is speaking to you at night, weekend, whenever they are talking to our AI agents at all sort of 50% of the interviews are happening outside the office hours, right? So you're actually giving a way for the candidates to access your TA team round the clock, and that
True.
wasn't possible before. So many of these things are only possible because of AI, because of how the candidates feel about engaging with these AI agents. So I do think it's a new world, and I think the candidates are embracing it head on. They love talking to these AI agents. They feel they are not judged. They can access them at any time. There is no time pressure. So it's not like you have to finish talking in 20 minutes. They can take 30 minutes. Sometimes people are taking an hour, and it depends on how comfortable they are with it, but it's the comfort level is going up exponentially. Our average interview durations and our engagement times are going up like a lot, 2x 3x over the last couple of years. So it is a new world, and I think candidates are embracing it with a lot more gutso, while the companies are still a little cautious. But once they get on this journey with some optimism, then they can't go back. So there is no reverse gear on this. Once you go through this journey, you do realize there's a new way, there is a more efficient way, there's a more delightful way of doing what you've been doing for like 30, 40 years. And like, why would we go back? We'll never go back.
True. Thank you so much for these amazing insights on the product. Thank you so much for having walking us through your own journey, how it has happened. I'm sure your journey, how it has moved across various spheres, how the decisions have moved, and such tremendous clarity and candid conversation would enable many to look at your journey and get inspired and look at the technology in a very different way. Before I conclude, I just want one answer to one specific question. How do you see AI moving in next 5 years?
Uh, 5 years feels like a lifetime. Like if you think 5 years back, I don't even think many of us can imagine a world, especially the ones who are working with AI, a world that was like COVID time, we were not talking about any of this stuff, right? So definitely, I think the world has moved exponentially. It is going to only increase uh, by leaps and bound. I do think there is a vision of the world that seems more possible every day, that we are going to be assisted by AI with or without our knowledge in pretty much every facet of our life. So, for anybody who has seen Iron Man, uh, we will either have our own Jarvis or we will have our Jarvises at work. But there are going to be these assistants that have great memory. They have good nuance. It's like if you ask a good question, you get a good answer. They're just allowing you to accomplish a lot more in the time that you have on this earth. So I do think that a lot of us, most of us, will be able to do a lot more with AI, and that is only going to accelerate in the next 5 years. So it's a really exciting I think it's going to be a more colorful world. It's just going to be. I'm really hoping it's going to be a happier world, but we'll see there, because I think not everybody has that same sort of, like, some people. I think uh, along any technology adoption curves, there are some early adopters, there are middle, and there's some laggards, right? So, but if you go in with enthusiasm of trying using AI to solve your problem, I think most of us will have a very, very good outcomes. So I do see a world that is very much approaching there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and thank you for these amazing insights.
Thank you.